Week is going well so far. Yeah, we are live. Week is going well so far. Busy, like everybody, probably. But how about you, Jamahl, Pedro? How about you guys?
It's definitely been a very busy week, and on top of that, the allergies are killing me right now.
Yeah, it's eating me up. I'm getting eat up right now.
And I literally I developed allergies like maybe 3 years ago.
Oh, you're a late bloomer.
it's even more frustrating because like every year I forget that I have them.
Yeah,
I walk
pops up on
outside,
you.
I open up all the windows. I'm in the car with the windows and the sunroof open. And
Yeah,
are getting puffy. I'm just like, oh crap! Right, I have allergies.
Yep.
That definitely hit my wife. She had to actually call the allergist this week and get a prescription. So yeah, it's bad.
Yeah, I was probably close to that because I barely was able to sleep last night. You know, my wife probably didn't sleep either because all she probably heard was all that noise all night long. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's real. That's real. I'm not a late bloomer. I've had allergies for years, so it's always a rough season because I'm always not expecting it to be as bad as it is for some reason. I'm always having the insight, oh, it's not going to be that bad, and then it hits me, and it's like, oh wow. And every day is different, you know. Every day is different. So But fellas, I wanted to first start off by recognizing that you guys are part of the first Black Men Ventures cohort that went through our program. So I wanted to first off start by saying congratulations on that, first and foremost. Like it was incredible for us to really go through this process because it took us a year to kind of get there, and then to see like the quality of people that we were able to get within this program really made it say like we are really missing a gap in touching Black men, you know, and there's some Black men out there doing some amazing things, and not just a party promoter or some of the more popular things. You know, we got people that are in tech and candles and products, and creating real companies that can stand up for themselves. So what I wanted to first start off with you guys and ask you guys is, what made you become an entrepreneur? What made you get into business? Whether that be in your specific field or an experience that happened to you that launched you and propelled you into entrepreneurship. Let's go with Pedro.
Yeah, sure. Well, entrepreneurship in general has just been a long-term passion of mine. We talked about where did we go to school at, and I made a little history at the school I went to, University of Delaware. I founded the entrepreneurship club there when I was, I think, either late junior, I think it was my senior year. And so I've always been passionate about that particular concept. I tried to build tech startup even back then, never got off the ground. But kind of fast forwarding, I knew that business ownership, entrepreneurship, et cetera, was the path for wealth creation versus just a traditional job path. And I've started a couple other endeavors as well that done well, but nothing that really, let's just say, changed the tax bracket status. Right? It helped move the needle, but didn't really change much. And so I've always been trying to figure out what's the next vehicle as a way to build wealth. And so that was just, I know that entrepreneurship is a vehicle for help closing the wealth gap, and so that was
that something you seen though? Was that something that like you seen in your neighborhood, or your dad was, or was it just something that you?
It was a bug for me that I just kind of had a thirst for. No, I did not see it. I did not see it in my immediate circle because I didn't really know what it was. So I just naturally, I was that kid was probably, if we were in high school or even in fifth grade, I was selling you something that, I was just naturally that person that just had something as a way to make a dollar. And it came out of the fact that I got tired of always asking my mom for something because she always said we were broke. And I said, what if I can just make my own dollar? Like literally, because my first in business was like when my father had a farm with like fruits, pecans, whatever the stuff is. And I used to just go over there, rack it all up, and go to the local grocery store and buy stuff. So I didn't know that was entrepreneurship, a way to make money for myself. And as I matured, I just learned more and more about what it is as a way to, become more sophisticated, and what entrepreneurship, business ownership really is as a vehicle. But unfortunately, I did not have any immediate examples that I can kind of mirror, which I realized that, is very, very helpful for some people if they do have that in front of them, with that exposure. But anyway, that was the bug. It was more of just a bug, and just being able to have something of my own vehicle as a way to create money. That was my desire for entrepreneurship.
Jamahl, what about you?
So honestly, for me, the entrepreneurship journey has been a little different in the sense that it was such a foreign concept to me. It was something that I don't necessarily want to say it was unattainable, but that's the word that I'm going to go with right now, right? In the sense that we were very much so trained, with my father being military, my mother immigrating to this country, go to school, get a corporate job, climb the corporate ladder, find that steady 30-year job and retire, right? Like that was literally the only way. And so that's what I always started doing. But what I came to quickly realize about myself is that I don't like boundaries and I don't like restrictions.
Oh yeah. Is
that
a millennial thing or what?
I don't function well in boxes. Like I need to be able to be unapologetically me, right? Yeah. But I never knew what that would manifest to actually mean or what it would be. And like I'd always tell myself, I talk to myself a lot. I'd be like, what can I do that I like to do and actually enjoy it and turn into a business? And I could never really figure anything out. And like, again, my story is happy wife, happy life. This is something that made my wife happy. And it incorporated a lot of elements that I'm passionate about in terms of aesthetics and scents and designs and things of that nature. So I was just like, oh, well, let's try this. And it's something that found out to be favorable, right? And it's one of those things where I think everybody's mission is always consistently changing and growing and evolving. The larger you get, the more people you interact with. And I like the fact that when people approach us about our company or whenever they want to interact with us, they see a Black man who is articulating his thoughts well, who's organized, who's structured, and they want advice, or they just want to collaborate, or they just want to appreciate and acknowledge, or they just want to support, right? And so it's one of those things where you come from a background where these things aren't as prevalent, and you kind of sort of change the narrative of like what it can look like for the future generations with your family, and just as well as the future generations of other people who you come across with. Right. And that's been awesome for me.
Right. I like how you said the concept of the candles come from happy wife, happy life. Mm-hmm. That's interesting. So you created a company around something that you and your wife like, or was it more so what she liked?
It's like I've always been a candle fanatic, right? Like she got into candles and stuff like that. And like most people, right, we've had a lot of dark times in our lives that we had to really push through, and candles came in through a sense of like meditation and prayer and like just creating an ambiance within our household. Right. And when we didn't have the flexibility or access to those types of things, we're just like, well, let's just try creating them, right? Let's see what happens when we try and make them. And making them turned into people being like, you make candles? Like, what do you mean? Let me get a candle. I'm like, sure. Right. Candle. Like my wife was just like, oh, I want vanilla this week. And I'm like, cool, I got you covered. We'll make some vanilla candles this week, right? And it was just always having the easy access to be able to create whatever mood, right? Because scents inspire moods and feelings and memories. Yep. Whatever inspiration you want for that particular time. If you need a mood elevator, we're going to go with this scent. Right. A spa theme, we're going to go with this scent, right? If you're kind of trying to get your sexy time on, we're going to go with this scent, right? Like there's so many different ways to tailor it. And it made her happy, which in turn...
You're a candle scientist. You're a candle scientist.
Literally, yes.
I work with scientists every day, so it's interesting how when they start going into depth about something, and I'm like, I'm not really all the way there, but like when you start talking that talk, I realize that you are really passionate about what you do, and I love that.
Yeah. There's nothing about it that feels like work to me.
That's awesome.
It's like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, and I'm in the candle studio. My wife is like cussing me out to get into bed. I'm just like, wait, hold on, I'm onto something. I got to blend here. And I got to write down my calculations and my ratios.
Yeah.
It's just exciting. Like the power of creation to me is like one of the most powerful things, and I love being able to make things.
From one entrepreneur to another, before I go to Jason, I want to say I applaud you because I recognize how hard it is to get to a place where, even though you want to go in entrepreneurship, it comes to a point where you're in this very hard place of growing your company, and it's not fun. And it's very grueling, you know what I'm saying? And if you can get past that point, I think it's opportunity like how you feel, right? Like I enjoy what I'm doing. I'm in my that exact pocket I belong in. Yeah. And I think all of us strive for that. So kudos to you, man. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, man. Jason.
Yes, sir.
What's up, dude?
Hey, man. Happy to be here, man. Happy to be here. Like I was telling Alfred a couple of days ago, man, Black Men Ventures is the first space that is just like safe for Black men to be vulnerable in business, right? Like I feel like I can talk to you brothers about, man, things that are going great, things that I don't understand. Like we don't understand all the spaces, right? And one of the things in the pitch practice, it was so dope. We got criticized, but it wasn't like a critique. It was like, yeah, you don't want to do this, but maybe you should do this. It's not right. Oh, you jacked up, bro. You jacked up. And then, well, I didn't know what that part was. And it's just, like I said, it's a dope experience. So I truly appreciate that, man. But
that's awesome. It's interesting because we all are entrepreneurs in our own right. So when we was creating this, we was vulnerable with each other to be able to create a space where it allows other men to be vulnerable together. So it was a process to get, to get to that point. And I'm glad that's coming off to you guys. Like this isn't about numbers. It's all about progression, and we have a space, opportunity, money, resources, and we want to help you guys get to another place. And so now I'm definitely glad that you feel that, because we spent a lot of energy and time creating that. Yeah, man. I'm gonna bring Torrence in, my co-host. Awesome. He is the tech of the house, but he can give him a small introduction. Torrence.
He's sleeping. We're live.
Torrence, come on, dude.
He doesn't realize it.
Okay.
Audio may not be on.
All right. We can continue going. No. So Jason, one of the questions, or two of the questions I asked Jamahl and Pedro was, what was that thing I was saying in business that decided for you to go in entrepreneurship or go into actually creating the idea that you have of OTV Academy? Like, what was that moment? So
it's two things, right? So the first part, entrepreneurship, my dad. My dad never really liked that typical 9 to 5. And I saw him have a very successful landscaping company in Miami. And it's part of the reason I went to college, because I was working for him since I was like 12. And I was like, I can't be in the heat my whole life. But hindsight 2020, I should have continued it. And I remember I was like 20 years old, 21. And my dad asked if I wanted to take over the business. I was like, man, I went to college, man. I'm about to go work in the AC and this, that, and the third. But once you start to think about it, right? And then now you fast forward as a more mature adult. And I was like, man, we could have taken this so many different places. And that's where the entrepreneur bug comes from, right? It's more. There's more. The audacity to have more. If X organization can pay me for this, what are they bringing in? And then when I look at myself, right? So my background is PR and marketing with a niche in crisis communication. And I was solving all these problems for these organizations. Plane crash, some CEO say something really jacked up. I'm fixing it, and I'm fixing these communities. And I'm like, man, how do I help my community, right? How do I put in a space to help my community? And we started We actually started On the Vision Foundation, which was a organization to seed our communities. And then one of the things was, it was like, we all group fund, donate, and give back to the community. But folks were like, what are you going to do with my dollar? I was like, it's a dollar. 44 million of us, we can do a lot though. And I said, the challenge is so many of us are in a space where we're still trying to grasp at straws. We're still trying to get the resources ourselves. So why don't we create something where not only they can be exposed to the knowledge, but also earn off of their knowledge? I believe exposure and access is the key, right? So many of Pedro talked about, he didn't really see entrepreneurship, but he had the bug, right? If we can show more people opportunities that they would never see in their everyday life, that may have been the opportunity. Like if I would have seen where college, and I'm not knocking college because I love my school.
Me too. But I got my issues with it too.
But it didn't prepare you to understand how to navigate through, right?
Right.
And for me, like I look at the pandemic. It taught us, if you can't move a thing, fix a thing, build a thing, and do a thing, you're expendable.
Yes.
Right. Truck drivers, electricians, plumbers, they're all working and they're doing well.
Mm-hmm.
Those marketing and PR folks, a lot of folks are like, hopefully I have a job. Right. And, and I think that's the shift, right? And creating something for legacy, for my last name. My last name, I'm Warner, but I'm not the Warner Brothers, right? Right. I need those billions for my legacy. I need it for future generations, so we can literally see change and not have to beg everybody else to, help our communities.
Sure. No, for sure. No, that's awesome. Pedro, I want to start back with you. I had a question. I was thinking about like where I'm at in business, like today, and where I started in business. What was probably like one thing I would tell my, myself at 22 or 20 years old, about business. What would be something that you would tell your younger self?
Yeah, it's a great question. I don't know how to properly word it, but basically it's around the concept of, because I remember the way I used to think about business and entrepreneurship back then, and it was, and I see this a little bit in our Black community now, about selling out. So I'm gonna take a chapter from Rich Dad Poor Dad in the 4 quadrant cash flow quadrant thing, where my concept back then was, I can work this business almost to the day I die, kind of thing. And what I realized then is that that's not where wealth is created, because my passion for entrepreneurship is wealth creation, and if you have to wake up every day in order to earn that dollar, that's not wealth creation. That's just income generation. And so the whole Rich Dad Poor Dad thing, he's talking about, you want to move from employee, self-employed to the business owner stage, right? And my way of thinking back then for business was more on the self-employed mindset versus the business owner mindset, where you create a business that turns into an asset that's worthy to be sold. And I didn't realize that concept until I got into venture a little bit later on. I understand where, like, oh, this is where wealth is really created. This is where you really turn a business into a real asset that's transferable, meaning that you can transfer to your kids if that's their desire. And it's not where, hey, can you take over this business? And then you got that son or that child got to still work 30 hours a day. And I know it's 24 hours a day. I'm just using an exaggeration, but in order to just make a living, versus when you transfer to them, they're now just overseeing the business and not have to work from sun up to sundown as a way to build a livelihood out of it. Or it's because it is scenarios where they don't want it, but you can sell it and get a premium price for it and live your life. I did not know that back then in my early 20s. The mindset was build it, to be an employee of that same business that I'm in and just make a living, but not build a asset. That was the difference. So I would tell myself, build a business to create an asset and not just to make a living. That's what I would tell my early 20s self.
So since we're the new host of the show, right? Since we're the new host, Jamahl, talk to us about like how that shift happened, right? You came out of Florida A&M University and you were able to navigate corporate America, right? So what did you tell yourself? What did that click? Because you were on a trajectory. You said that your parents said, go get a good job, go to corporate America. Like, what was that click at that younger self? And what would you tell that young kid coming out of Tallahassee?
I think the one thing that I would probably tell my younger self would be very similar to my earlier theme, right? Don't let people put limits on you, right? I think oftentimes, especially for Black men, right? You're told you got to be 10 steps ahead, right, of any person, X, Y, Z, and the third, right? But you still have to act a certain way, to be treated a certain way. You have to look a certain way. You have to do things a certain way, right? You're put in all of these boxes or restrictions to try and get certain things, but even the things that you're trying to get, it still has a cap of sorts, right? So in my mind, that always came off to me as, you always have to be on your P's and Q's. You always have to be very, very perfect to get as far as people will allow you to get, right? And those were things like, I remember coming out of college, I was just like, okay, well, I got to try and get to 6-figure salary, right? And that was laughable in some people's mind, because a goal like that is so far unattainable. A 6-figure salary, it's just like, oh, there's no way you can get six figures in corporate America. They're not going to let you have that type of stuff and da 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 da. And like those types of things